The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hey there, everybody. It is Lyn-Dee Eldridge, your Chief Happiness Officer, coming in from my satellite studio in South Florida. And I am so thrilled to be able to come to you today and bring you a guest who I had the greatest opportunity to meet a few weeks ago at a Rotary Club social. So that tells you a lot about the gentleman right there, right? The Rotary, because the Rotary is all about giving back and helping and moving forward. And this gentleman just really caught my attention. He is an intuitive coach. He's an intuitive mentor and a healer. And today we're going to be talking about really bringing out the magnificent you. This gentleman, when you hear him talk, is going to give you so many amazing tips on how to come out of your shell, how to come out of whatever it is that you feel that is holding you back. And we're going to be able to make you move forward now. So without further ado, I'm going to bring to you my good friend now, Mr. JoeMPetroski from West Palm Beach, Florida. Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. And it was a great time meeting you. Yes, that was a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun that night, didn't we?
We certainly did, yeah. And it's one of those things where Rotary is one of those opportunities where you can have fun and do good at the same time. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. And Joe, I was just really drawn to you. I was watching you speak to others, and I was overhearing what you were saying, and I was so delighted to hear the giver that was coming out of you. I found that you're not the kind of a person that's a me, me, me. I found that you were the kind of person that really liked to help people get out of their funk. So would you do me a favor and share with the audience your background, your past, share whatever it is that you want to share that we're going to help our audience that are sitting on the couch right now or watching us from anywhere because we're live on Facebook, and help them understand how can they get out of their own way so they can go ahead and become magnificent.
Okay. Well, there's a couple things. The first thing that I like to let people know is that 18 and a half years ago, I was actually sent home by doctors to die. They'd worked with me for over 6.5 years. I was on oxygen for almost 2 years. And after working with these doctors, they said, Joe, there's one more treatment that we can give you. But if it doesn't work, one doctor said, if it doesn't work, it will kill you. That was one doctor. And then I thought, well, that guy's an allopathic doctor. He's old school. He's regular medicine. And so I went to the other doctor, and they both knew I was working with different doctors because my illness was so tragic. And I knew that I was losing to it. And so I went to the other doctor, though, because he was better, and he did all the natural stuff, all the homeopathic, everything that you can imagine. He trained in France, he trained in Germany, he trained in the United States. So I went to him, and he says, Joe, he says, we have one more treatment, but if it doesn't work, it's going to hasten your death. So you have to go home and you have to get ready to die. And I was, so to have two of the best doctors that were treating my unusual condition, to basically say that you had less than a year to live, it was a really horrible experience. And so when I actually went for my Social Security hearing, the Social Security doctor showed up at the hearing, which he didn't need to do. And so the judge said, why are you here? He says, well, Mr. Petroski is not, by definition, clinically insane, but he really believes that he's going to live. And there's nearly 1.5 inches of medical evidence and tests that are proving that he's going to die. And then he looked at me, he says, Mr. Petroski, he says, you have to accept the fact that you're going to die. Well, as you can see, that was 18 and a half years ago. And even though the best doctors had said that I was, lights out, I wasn't ready to give up. And one of the things I want people to know is that life basically is supposed to be a community activity. They talk about the fact that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, nowhere are we really supposed to do it on our own. And all the time in the past, it was something where in every village, there were healers, there were herbalists, there was medicine people, medicine women, medicine men. But only recently are we told to pull ourselves up our own bootstraps. And so what I want people to know is being your magnificent self. One is you really have to choose what it is that you want. I wasn't going to die. I wasn't ready to die, even though all of the evidence showed it. Everybody thought I was nuts, that I was going to live. But I kept on trying, and I kept on trying. And so eventually I met this incredible healer. I went to him and his students, and after the second hour, I was off the oxygen. After the third, I was completely healthy. I was as skinny as could be. You could see the cartilage in my nose. You could tell the difference in my bones and my ribs between the cartilage and the bone. But I studied with this fella, and I learned that I was this intuitive, and I had no idea that I had this gift. People wondered if, and like everything I ever thought or felt was whooped out of me when I was a kid. I had learned that the less I said, the better off I'd be. And so I didn't speak up. I didn't say anything. And all of a sudden I came to the point, and in my illness, I learned that I had to basically be able to say, this is me, and me is good enough. And when you talk about the being your magnificent self, I've been doing the healing work now for 17 years. And I've studied so much with so many different people. I've talked with Bruce Lipton. I've talked with Dr. Dean Rodden, who's the Einstein of today. And I've had the wonderful opportunity to be with these incredible healers, Dr. Norman Shealy. And one of the things that we can't live is we can't live a mediocre life. A mediocre life is basically putting butter on top of the slide and waiting for it to go down. Because if we live mediocre, that's average, okay? And who is ever successful if you're average? And people thinking it's like, but we know with neuro-linguistic programming, for example, the power of words, okay? And so when I work with people to be your magnificent self, how was it that I lived? One is I had a belief, and I had to make the new belief the reality. I had to forget about everything that everybody had ever told me in my life, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't smart enough, that I wasn't, any of those things. I had to give all that up. I had to claim that somehow, some way I was going to live. And so when I would talk with people, maybe they're not dealing with life and death issues, but they want to be happier in their relationships. They want to be happier in their career. They want to be more successful. And so what it is you have to be able to eliminate the old beliefs, the old laws. Because when we were kids, you had to take on the dysfunction of what was going on in the home. So if you were told that you weren't good enough, you weren't pretty enough, you weren't as pretty as your sister, all these different things, we have to get rid of those old laws and make the new laws. And so to create those new beliefs, and to create the new beliefs, you can't basically say, I'm good enough or I'm pretty. What we have to do is we have to say, I'm magnificent. I am amazing. I am terrific. Exactly. Because if you think about it, it's like if you train for athletes or you train for dancing or something like that, you can't just sit there and be average. Nobody's going to be average and win. Nobody's going to be average and get to the podium. You have to be able to say and declare that I'm amazing. I'm magnificent. So when we do those kinds of things, it actually rewrites their neurotransmitters in our brain, because anything that we've ever gone through, any trauma, any good thing, any bad thing, literally leaves a chemical pathway in the brain. And we sit there and how come I always end up with the same relationships? How come I always, get so far in life, but I can't get past it? Well, that's because we have the old neurotransmitters that are like ruts in the road. You're from up north, and it's back in the day when you would drive down to the streets in the snow, you'd get stuck in the ruts and you'd try and turn out, and it was kind of hard to do. Remember those days?
I do.
Sorry to bring up the trauma.
It's all good.
Yeah. But it's like, that's what it is when we have the neural pathways. And people say, well, how can that possibly be? And I tell them, it's like, well, when you think about eating a lemon, when you think about biting into a lemon, what happens in your mouth is you feel that extra saliva instantaneously. Exactly. And so that's a neural pathway that we know has a proven existence. And somebody can only have a lemon once or twice, and that pathway is formed. So if we're consistently being told that we're not good enough, we're not handsome enough, we're not successful enough, we're dumb, whatever, those are neural pathways that we have to rewrite in order to be successful. And so
I'm just so thrilled that you rewrote what the doctors were telling you what was going to be your final destination. And when you said, no, that's not happening, and you searched for more and you found a healer and everything just started happening on a positive. I also believe it was your mindset. I also believe that it was where you were hanging out, what you were doing, and who you were really tuned in to deciding to listen to and to work together as a team. Do you think that that had a lot to contribute to your healing factor?
Oh, certainly. I have people that are definitely angels that if it was not for them, I can guarantee you that I wouldn't be here completely. There's the people that help me through this are amazing. The people that helped me when I couldn't help myself. I was so ill and so sick that for 3.5 years, literally, I sat in an easy chair and I sucked on oxygen for 2 of that. And I couldn't go out. I couldn't go to places. If I would go to Target or Whole Foods, I would be overcome by the normal everyday chemicals so badly that it would cut the blood flow off to a certain part of my brain, and I couldn't see. I could see stuff, but I couldn't tell you what it was that I was seeing. And so I had some really great friends that helped me along the way. And it was one of those things where I just thought about it, and I kept myself alive at the one time. I only had my one daughter, and I was like, I had an argument with God one night. I cussed and I screamed and I yelled at him. And
you had an argument with God?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Tell me about this argument with God, because I am with you. There are times that sometimes we just get so frustrated and we look up at God and we look up at the universe. Share with me what your conversation was, because I've had that conversation and I thank God he's always stayed on my side and we were able to work through it. But share that, because that's really interesting. People think that, you're supposed to never argue with God. But you had an argument. I want to hear about that conversation you had.
Well, I'll bleep it out.
Yeah, bleep it out.
I was extraordinarily ill, very, very ill. And one day it was 2:30 in the morning, and I was sick again. And I was in the bathroom, and I looked as I was sitting there on the throne, and I could see the mirror in front of me on the shower surround. And I could see this ghastly glow from the full moon, and there was this green glow, and I could see the horror picture that I had become. I was so darn skinny, you could see my sunken cheekbones, my cartilage, and then there was this green glow. And I was so scared and I was so mad all at once. And I had always been a good boy. I had never done anything wrong, never broke the law, never did any drugs, and I looked and I told God to bleep, I told him to bleep off. I told him to bleep off, to go bleep himself, you bleeping, and I cussed and I screamed and I yelled and I told him what he could go do with himself multiple times in case he didn't hear it the first time. And I sat there, and it was interesting because I really, really thought I was taking him and just throwing him out in the trash. But I really look at it, and I figure that it was my prayer of Job, where Job is like, hey, dude, I've done everything you've asked of me. Nothing's happening. What the heck? And so that's how I felt. But I was sitting there, and it's like, you know what? Screw you. It ain't working. I'm going to do this on my own. And so that night, I made a declaration, and this is, it was crazy. I do this so I don't cry.
You could cry. You're okay, Joe. You're doing great. Thank you.
My daughter did not know me healthy until she was 5.5 years old. And I was getting very, very sick, really, really sick when she was about 3.5 or 4. And I couldn't even imagine in my mind's eye to be able to live long enough to watch her walk down the aisle to get married. What I said is, I'm going to live long enough to watch her walk down the aisle. And I always said that to my daughter, but it was like, but I was thinking about when she would graduate from high school. I thought that that's going to be the longest I could live. And so I was going to watch her walk down the aisle for graduating from high school. And then I was going to eat chocolate chip cookies, because back in the day, if I would have ate chocolate chip cookies, I would have been mortally ill. I cannot begin to tell you the body pains that I had when I would have stuff like that. I would itch like a fiend, and I would hallucinate, crazy stuff. And then I was going to play volleyball. So when I put out my plans to live, those were the 3 gigantic things I was going to do.
Can you eat chocolate chip cookies now?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I'm going to buy you a big one. I'm going to buy you a big chocolate chip cookie.
I like the chocolate.
Okay, we'll make sure you get you the chocolate.
And when I got better, I started to learn how to bake, and a friend of mine taught me how to make a flourless chocolate cake. And people say, "Is this flourless?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it's flourless. So it's gluten free." And like, "Well, no, it's not gluten free." I says, "It's just unadulterated chocolate." There's no sense in messing up the chocolate with flour, and that's something that I make a joke of it. But we need to not have things be more powerful than us. There's so many people, sugar is going to kill you. And it's like, okay, really? Are you trying to tell me that when you were a little girl and your mom made you cookies and gave you milk and cookies when you came home from school, was she trying to kill you? It's like, no, she goes, and you think about it, and it's like, when I was a little kid and we had, Christmas cookies, or we had the Easter basket, or, anything like that kind of stuff, any kind of candy, that we got, it's like, okay, were we given that? So, maybe he's going to die. No, we ate that stuff, and we ate it really, really well. And we did okay. And so now everybody wants to make sugar the villain. But I asked people to look back, and it's like in the 80s and the 90s, the villains of that day were corn. Corn's going to kill you. Soy's going to kill you. Those were things. And I look at people and I tell them, it's like, okay, so answer me this question. Back in the 80s and the 90s, how many people were having carpal tunnel surgery? Okay. And then all of a sudden they started to have knee replacement surgery. Okay. And before that it was hip replacement surgery, and now it's shoulder replacement surgery. And so how is it that we have these rotating illnesses? Because, is it something, you're a vintage 1975, that means your shoulder is going to go bad. You're a vintage 1960, so that means your knees are going to go bad. God didn't make us like that. He didn't make us with fallible parts. What it is, there's so much that's collective consciousness and spoken word and doctor consciousness. There was a study done long ago. They found out that if you took a white male that was 55 years old, that had been going to the doctor religiously every 5 years like he's supposed to as a good boy, he'd go when he was 30 years old, 35 years old, 40 years old, 45, by the time he was 55, if you took that man compared to the man that never went to the doctor, because every year they say, it's like, okay, next time you come in, we're going to check you for this disease. The next time we come in, we're going to check you for this disease. We're going to check you for that disease. We're going to check you for this disease. We're going to check you for that. And they lead up the idea basically in you that you're going to get another disease and you're going to be more prone to that disease. Well, what ends up happening is the guy that religiously goes to the doctor ends up having more of those illnesses than the guys that don't go to the doctor. The guys that haven't been told, watch out for that, that's going to hurt you, that's going to make you sick. And another study that they had done long ago, they took the people in San Diego and they took the people in Tijuana, okay, just miles apart from each other. And so they looked at it, what was the quality of health of the people in San Diego compared to the people in Tijuana? Well, the people in Tijuana, they had crap for meat. They had virtually no green vegetables. They had virtually no fresh fruit because they had to sell it all. They had to sell the vegetables. They had to sell the fruit. So they were eating flour, they were eating beans, and they were eating really bad meat, bad quality meat. But they had less heart disease than the guys in San Diego. Okay, they had less, issues than the people that had supposedly great health care and great food. And when they looked at it, what they found out was what you had talked about before is community. Who are you hanging out with? What are they saying, and what are they focusing on? That is what actually creates our health. And they've seen this study after study, and they're talking about it now in addictions, that to beat an addiction, you have to have a solid community. And the people the people that become addicts have a sense of loss of community or no community. And so what we think about is so powerful and so important. And so, like right now, I did a Facebook Live today about breast cancer and pink. And when I raised my little girls, they were all supposed to go to first grade and kindergarten with their pink shirts about breast cancer. Do you know how many of those little girls, it's like, am I going to get breast cancer? When am I going to get breast cancer?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And they, and they say, the girls would say, what's wrong with my breasts? And they wouldn't say that. The little girls, what's wrong with my boobs? And so I told my girls, you can't wear pink. I said, you can wear pink. You can wear a pink on a different day. But I said, and I did the Facebook Live today. What we need to be able to do is, instead of worrying, oh my God, I'm afraid. Oh my God, I'm afraid. It's like, no, celebrate it. Celebrate it. Adore your body. You know how it is. I mean, how many women out there are saying, I'm completely happy with my body. No, they got to be bigger. They got to be smaller. They got to be perkier. They got to be this. They got to, and it's like, if we're sending that kind of energy to our own body, how's our body supposed to respond? If you would go to a friend and say, if you were a little bit different, if you were a little bit this, if you were a little bit that, if you're a little bit taller, how would your friend react? Your friend would be hurt. Your friend would be, after a while, your friend wouldn't want to be your friend anymore. And so if we're giving that kind of information to our body, how's our body supposed to respond?
Yeah.
And Louise,
hey, Joe, let me just, I want to just ask you a few questions right now. Can you believe we're almost out of time?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I know. It goes by so fast. So, number one, I am a breast cancer survivor, and I'm not that person who eats organically or really looks at the labels. Number one, I believe that our ancestors and our families that are getting older are living a lot older than us because they don't understand all of this biological stuff that we're trying to educate ourselves on the right foods and on the wrong foods. George Burns died at 101. He ate everything and he fried everything and he smoked cigars. That's number one. Number two, I do believe, like, for instance, with breast cancer, that every woman should go once a year when they hit that age to go for a mammogram. I was detected early, thank God. We fast-tracked it. I had the surgery. I had a lumpectomy. I didn't have any kind of reconstruction surgery, and I'm thrilled about that. So I want to make sure that we're getting the message out there that you should go for your annual checkups, but don't be so crazy about the foods that you eat and this organic stuff, because and people are going to hate me for this, I live in my happiness jungle world. I live in the philosophies of enjoy life. Just don't be careful with all the chocolate that you eat. Make sure that you're eating what you're supposed to be eating, but for God's sake, stop being so crazy when it comes to the organic eating, all of this stuff, because people today are dying younger than when they were dying. Would you agree with that?
Completely. And there's study after study that talks about, and it shows it. HeartMath.org shows it. There's a great movie called The Cure Is, and they talk about the fact that what we think about what we eat is more important than what we actually eat. And I've done it, and I've shown study when I teach, because I teach about energy healing and stuff like that, and I put things in paper bags so people can't see what it is. And it actually means more what they think than what it is about what we eat. And it's clearing the mind of the hurt. It's clearing the mind of the anger. It's clearing the mind of the shoulds. And it's one of those, we have to be able to look in the mirror and be able to say, I love you. Looking in the mirror saying, I love you. And then it's like, I trust me. I trust me, and I understand you. We have to be able to do those kinds of things. It's so important to be on our side.
It truly is. And walking into a new community that's going to bring you into the love for yourself. Mm-hmm. What do they say? Whoever the 5 people are that you're hanging out with, check your phone right now. Who is the 5 people that you last spoke to? If they're doom and gloom, but if they're powerful, like on my phone, I have you as one of my last contacts. I have the powerful people that I have met, and I feel amazing about me. There's nothing that I can't accomplish. There's nothing that I can't heal from. And there's nothing that I can't do because I don't have all that negative noise coming in at me from all different other angles. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you're on my phone.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly, the power of intention and the power of support is so vital. And it's one of those things where you're correct. We cannot do this alone. We have to be able to have a community of people that are good. And you see it where you come up and if you see somebody that it's like, oh, and you know within 5 minutes all the negative things that are going on in their life, they're probably going to be a whole lot less healthy. They're going to have a whole lot more illness. And so the more that we can actually, and this is the thing, the power of gratitude is so strong. If somebody, and we all know what it feels like to fall in love. Somebody comes in, it's like, oh, you're so cute. Oh, you're so pretty. It's like, oh, you're so funny. And it's like, all these different things. How come it feels so good when somebody else says it compared to when we say it? Because if I look in the mirror and say, oh, you're looking good today, I really have to be able to own that. Yeah. I have to be able to, go ahead.
Yeah, I help people, I train people, I coach people, I mentor people, I have workshops that does exactly that. I'm like, I want you to get up every single morning with your bed head and with, whether you wash your makeup off, you didn't wash your makeup off, and the first thing that I want you to do when you look into the mirror is say, I love you, you are handsome, you're beautiful, you got moxie, you got it all. Joe, we got 1 minute and 27 minutes. I want you to now give your information, how everybody can get a hold of you, and give your last tip before we have to close off.
Okay. They can go to, as they can see, the profoundpower.net. My email is JoeMPetroski@gmail. My phone number is 651-755-6027. And I always give a free consultation. And I want people to know that you don't have to live with pain. You don't have to live with illness. My healing techniques are amazing. They're not the only thing out there. They're not the only thing out there. But I've been able to help so many people be able to completely, totally eliminate pain, illness, allergies, migraines, all of that kind of stuff very quickly. So if people have questions, just give me a call.
That's awesome. And I know the power within you because I've seen you just in a room, like I said, in Palm Beach at the Rotary Club, and I could see the people that were hurting that you were helping, and all you were doing was having conversation with them and just networking with them. So thank you so much, Joe, for being who you are. Thank you so much for being on the Happiness Jungle TV show. And everybody, this is Lyn-Dee Eldridge. This is Mr. Joe with Profound Power. And we never said that life was easy, but we did say that you could be happier. So with that, Joe, give a good wave goodbye. And I surely do appreciate you. And I am so thankful that the good Lord did not take you and that you are here today to help me and everybody else around the world. You're a true blessing. You're a true blessing. And I owe you a chocolate chip cookie.
Okay. I may share it.
Bye for now, everybody. All right, you got that. Bye-bye for now, everybody. I'll see you on the island, Joe.
Okay, bye-bye.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.